Today our case is a missing person case, and I wanted to highlight it as it was suggested by a subscriber and because it is not a very well known case. I know people are not big fans of unsolved or missing person cases, but they are so important for the families, and it is understandable they want and need answers. This case is over 25 years in the making, and so it is very important. It was a journey Ellen Coss Brown had travelled many times before. She did not like flying, and so she would get a ferry from Dunleary in County Dublin to Holyhead and a train to Piccadilly Station in Manchester in England. In 1999, Ellen was 50 years old. Her mother had died earlier in the year and she was struggling with the loss and adjusting to living without her. Ellen therefore decided to take a little break and stay with her sister Bertha, who lived in Langley Avenue, Middleton in Manchester. Ellen had taken this journey many times over the years and was well used to travelling on her own, so when she disappeared on the 3rd of November 1999, it was a shock to all that knew her, and to this day many questions have been asked and remain unanswered. Ellen Brown was born on the 30th of April 1949 and was one of 4 children, James, Thomas and Bertha, who grew up in the Ballyfermot area of Dublin. She worked various jobs over the years, including working as a hairdresser and cleaner. She was a member of Aware Ireland, which is a national organisation providing free support, education and information services to people impacted by anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder and related mood conditions. She was also a member of the organisation Gingerbread, which would have supported single mothers. This group later merged with the One Family organisation. When Ellen went missing, she was described as 5 foot 3 inches tall, slim build, and had long light coloured brown hair going a little grey. She looked well for her 50 years. Ellen had a son, Peter, with her ex-husband, David Coss. The marriage broke up when Peter was a child, and so he was primarily raised by Ellen. He was 30 years old and living in London, working as a customer service supervisor at the time of Ellen's disappearance. They had a close relationship and would see each other on birthdays, Christmas, and Peter would make the journey to Manchester to see her when she was visiting. Peter would say that Ellen was softly spoken, a vivacious person who loved traditional music, walking, and would often be caught singing around the house. But as I said, Ellen suffered from depression, and since the death of her mother in March of that year, it had gotten worse, and so to be near her son, she decided to stay with her sister Bertha for a few months, thinking a change of scenery would make her feel better. Ellen did not drink, smoke or take drugs, but because she was suffering from the loss of her mother, she did start to drink, which of course would have been more of a hindrance than a help. The night before she disappeared, Peter spoke with her on the phone about her depression and told her only she can ask for help, only she can do it, and no one could do it for her, and Ellen agreed. She told Peter she loved him and that would be the last time he would ever hear from her again. The next day Ellen travelled with her sister Bertha to Piccadilly train station in Manchester to get a train to Holyhead and from there a boat to Dunleary in Dublin. At the time, Ellen was living in Windy Arbour in Dublin. When the pair arrived at the station, they said their goodbyes and Bertha waved Ellen off as she proceeded down the platform to the trains. Whether Bertha actually saw Ellen get on the train is not fully established, and it is also presumed she got as far as Holyhead, but again this cannot be confirmed. On the 4th of November, Peter received a phone call from his uncle Thomas, telling him that Ellen had not arrived home. Peter knew that Ellen would sometimes go off on her own, but only for a couple of hours and never more than a day. The following day no one still had heard from her, and so concern grew. Ellen did not have a mobile phone, which made it more difficult for the family, so they contacted the Gardaí and reported her missing. They were advised to wait until the following day, even though it had now been 3 days since anyone last saw Ellen. The family also contacted the police in Manchester and Holyhead. It wasn't going to be easy on the family as they were going to be dealing with police agencies in Ireland, England and Wales. The first question was, did Ellen get on the boat? Police viewed CCTV footage at Holyhead Terminal for a total of 8 days and then came back saying it was indiscernible. So that line of inquiry was a dead end. They also looked at the train route from Piccadilly Station to Holyhead and the many stops along the way, the main stop being Chester. The journey would have taken at least 3.5 hours. I could not find anywhere whether Ellen pre-booked her tickets for the boat and train, which would have been cheaper for her if she did, but she also could have booked them both on the day. Ellen could have easily bought her ticket as a walk-on as she made her way through the terminal. She did not have her passport with her, as it was not needed back then when travelling between the UK and Ireland, and she would not have had to give her name. So there was no real manifesto to check, unless you were travelling by a motorised vehicle. She also was only carrying £20. There was no mention as to what luggage she was carrying, and no mention of her personal items like a handbag. Surely she had clothes with her, considering she had been staying with her sister for those few months. In the months that followed, there were several reported sightings of Ellen in Dublin, Holyhead and Manchester, but none could be confirmed as definite. The police at first went against the family, saying she was a 50-year-old woman, and if she wanted to disappear, she was entitled to. It was another reason why the family thought the police gave up on Ellen so quickly, because she was a middle-aged woman. The disappearance of Ellen fell between two jurisdictions, and responsibility of the investigation was never really established. Her brother Thomas would tell the Irish Sunday Mirror newspaper that she was spotted in Holyhead drinking with a crowd of strangers, and that would not have been her normal behaviour at all. Thomas spent years travelling back and forth to Holyhead in the hope of finding Ellen. An employee of a restaurant in the centre of Holyhead told him that a woman the exact size, description, and with the same mannerisms as Ellen came in to shelter from the rain and wind and was asked to leave by a member of staff. Ellen or the woman said sorry in a soft, refined voice and left. At one point, Thomas called the police in Manchester to ask if they had any news on Ellen, but was told they had cut back the search as they were led to believe she was back in Dublin working as a childminder. Thomas then trawled the streets of Dublin looking for his sister, even posing as a homeless person when he got a tip-off that a woman matching Ellen's description was living on the streets. Thomas spent many a night sleeping rough, and eventually he would come across the woman. And while she looked like Ellen, it was not her. In 2002, a body of a woman was washed up at Eastbourne in the southeast of England. Bertha and Peter were contacted to go down and identify the body. It was very decomposed, and so visually they both could not be certain that it was Ellen. The coroner wanted to compare dental records to confirm that it was Ellen, but unfortunately Ellen had not been to a dentist since 1991, and as that was over 8 years ago, her records had been deleted. DNA was eventually taken from both Peter and Bertha, and it came back as not a match. In April 2021, a judge ordered that an ad be placed in a leading Manchester newspaper in a bid to track down Ellen. It was ordered as a beneficiary estate case worth €372,000 to Ellen could be finalised. James, Ellen's brother, was administrator of the bachelor estate of a family member who left money in his will, including to Ellen. The judge said they would adjourn the matter until July of that same year, when further directions would be considered by the court in the event of no further trace of Ellen being found. No one came forward with any new information, and considering this, Ellen's estate was passed on to her son Peter, including the inheritance. Peter, who was now 55 years old as of 2025, said back in 2019, "If she is still alive, we would just be relieved she is okay and would just say to get in touch." He also said if the worst has happened and anyone who knows her or has information, then please just get in touch with the police. Bertha, Ellen's sister, passed away in 2015, not ever knowing what happened to her beloved sister. Thomas is pushing on himself, as he says, now 65. He said he is suffering from ill health and can't travel back and forth to Holyhead like he used to. He is convinced that Ellen made it to Holyhead and the answers lie there. There is no evidence that Ellen intentionally disappeared or had thoughts of suicide or would hurt herself. She was very close to her family and they don't think that she would do something to leave them wondering for all these years. She was a kind, gentle soul and the type who always wanted to help if anyone was in trouble. It is possible that Ellen did make it on the ferry, and some witnesses did come forward and say as much. If she did, then she could have intentionally or unintentionally ended up in the water, and either her body was recovered and never identified, or she was washed further out to sea and so was never recovered. We do know that there are many graves both in Ireland and the UK with unidentified bodies in them, and also many bodies have washed up on mainland Europe, also never identified. There were no reports of any incidents, assault or attempted kidnappings along the route from Manchester to Holyhead around the date Ellen went missing. Also, I want to include questions that have not been publicly answered by any of the investigators in Ireland, Wales or England. Was Ellen captured on CCTV getting on the train in Piccadilly Station in Manchester, or getting off at any of the stops along the way? Was she seen getting off the train in Holyhead, which is in the same building as the port terminal for the ferry? It is a 2-minute walk from one point to the other. Was there CCTV in this building? Going back to the passenger manifesto, the ferry at that time said they did not carry one for foot passengers. But if this is the case, in the event of a ferry accident, how would they know how many people went into the water and are missing if they didn't at least count the passengers? This, to me, is ridiculous. Have the police in the UK and Gardaí in Ireland checked financial activity with regards to Ellen? If so, these have not been made public. Because Ellen did not have a mobile phone, this was not an avenue that could be explored. It will be 26 years in November since Ellen went missing. The family has been left to feel that the Gardaí dropped the ball from the beginning, and that was because of her age. Looking for Ellen was not a priority. She was a grown woman and could disappear if she wanted to without having to answer to anyone, and this suited the Gardaí. I have covered many missing person cases and spoke with some of the families, and it is them that keep these missing people in the media and humanise them as a reminder that they are someone's sister, brother, daughter, son, mother, father, and so on. It is the families who fight for justice and must shame on Garda Síochána as a whole into doing something. The missing are not forgotten by the Irish people, especially their families. I will leave the final words to Thomas.
Well, my sister Ellen Coss has been missing 15 years. Ellen Coss Brown, November the 3rd, 1999 she went missing. My name is Tom Brown. For 15 years my sister has been ignored in the main by the state, the Gardaí investigating in her case. Apart from a small bit of help from a few politicians and others over the years and announcements in the media, I can only speak for my missing sister. That's what I'm doing down today. I've been here from 12 noon, I'll be here till 3 AM, the 3rd of November, which is our 15th anniversary of missing since she went missing. As I said, I realise now that I should have spoken out about the mistreatment I endured and the lack of effort to find my sister by the people whose job it was to do so. The state and the Gardaí investigating the case. I am asking that my sister is not forgotten and that mistakes made in her case will not be repeated and they can save other families undue hardship. As I said, it doesn't get any easier every day, every year. Ellen, I love you, it goes without saying that, but what's breaking me, my heart is broken, but it will not be broken by the state or the Gardaí who failed to do their job investigating your case when you went missing. It's a basic thing they should have done, but they didn't do it. And I'm hoping if anything comes out of this, that someone can be spared the torment I had to go through, the family had to go through over these years, the last 15 years. That's all that matters. You can't take back time, and you can't you can't be bitter, but you can't let people away with not doing their job. You must hold the state to account, and you must hold the police, whose job it is to investigate missing cases. They didn't do it in my sister's case, and they're rubbing salt into their wounds as I speak now by pretending that we're checking things out and all this carry on, just to cover themselves basically, taking me for a fool. Maybe I'm a fool. People say I'm a fool standing out here. Why are you standing out here? It's not exactly a summer's day. It's the last time in public I will ever do that. Ironically, as I'm speaking, Ellen's picture fell down. That's my sister Ellen Coss, as I says. Ellen Coss Brown. I love Ellen. I love you, Ellen, and I always will. Goes without saying. I shouldn't have said it more when you were alive. I hope you're at peace now, Ellen. And I hope no one else ever has to endure what we went through. That's all I'm asking. Today, as I says, is your 15th year missing. My heart is broken, but I will not be broken by the state and members, organs of the state who should have done their job. The media look on the missing people still as a taboo subject. I do not know why. I've blown the whistle on all this. I have proof of all the lies that were told to me of corruption, but that nobody wants to act on it. I can't force anybody to do it. Ellen, today is a day I should not have to be losing my temper and all that, but I can't help it. I love you, it goes without saying it. This is the last time in public I will ever do this, Ellen. I know it's not very good, it's not very camera friendly or anything else, but I can't let the people away, the state and the police who should have investigated your case. I've got to go to the ends of the earth to find the truth, to get closure if possible on what happened to you, Ellen, but to ensure it never happens to anyone else. I've campaigned for many years and we still haven't got it, an island-wide missing persons helpline with dedicated police units just for missing people. But again, that's in the past, Alan. I won't forget you ever, but this is the last time I will ever refer to you in public or ever discuss anything. This is the end of all my visuals, as I says. I love you, Alan, and the nearest I get to, as I says, Alan, I love you. That's as near as I get to ever kissing you again. I wish to God I had it spoken out sooner, but nobody will listen anyway. Nobody listens. I love you, Alan. I miss you so much.